Friends and family only Friday. It's Friday, August 1st, 2025. President Trump's reciprocal tariffs are now in effect. We've heard, of course, that Trump always chickens out. Of course, that's not true. As we said before, Trump has used tariffs as a weapon or as a tool to achieve foreign policy goals. And three instances of that are very clearly, first off, Colombia promising to take criminal alien invaders from their country, their nationals. U.S. flew a military flight down there. And as it was about to land, Colombia's president interceded. Of course, he's the guy that approved it, interceded and said, nope, we're not taking them. Plane turned around. Trump was on the golf course when he found out. He picked up the phone. He made a phone call. 50% tariffs on all Colombian exports to the United States immediately. 1 week from today, if they haven't rescinded this position, 100%. Within an hour, Colombia backed down. And not only did they back down, but the Colombian president sent his own jet to pick up more criminal alien invaders. That's the first time the tariffs worked that we know of publicly. The second time was Panama was allowing the Chinese to negotiate to win the contract to run the canal zone. Something that cost the United States over 30,000 lives building that canal over a century ago, land that belonged to the United States. And we generously gave back to Panama with the understanding that Panama would run it for the benefit of Panamanians, not for Chinese communists. Trump threatened tariffs on Panama. Next thing you know, China is no longer involved in that activity. And the third one, of course, was Denmark refusing to do its basic responsibility to defend its colony in Greenland in the Arctic for decades. Trump had enough of it. He offered to buy it. They ignored him the first term. This time he offered to buy it. They laughed at him, so he threatened to invade, jokingly, of course. Suddenly, Denmark is spending $879 million after Trump threatened to put tariffs on Denmark. They're spending $879 million buying ships and building a naval base to defend the Arctic sea lanes. So tariffs can work, especially if you have the biggest hammer on the block. And Trump has the biggest hammer with the world's largest consumer market. So what's going on with these tariffs? Well, South Africa is also one of the countries being hit with these tariffs today, the 1st of August. One thing we should mention very quickly up front is that Trump hasn't backed down. People are going to try to spin this, but the reality is this. Apparently, Customs and Immigration did not get their act together in time to deal with these myriad of different levels of tariffs, 35% for Canada, 15% for EU countries, 30% for South Africa, Brazil, 50%, and the list goes on and on. It's a little confusing. It's not like everybody comes in and pays the same rate. So they have to update their systems. And because of that, they say it will take them 7 days. So the tariffs are technically legally in effect now, but they're not going to hit products and start being charged until 7 days afterwards. So either on the 7th or the 8th of this month is when it'll take effect. So there's no delay in the tariffs, just so that's clear, except for Mexico. Mexico is kindly given a 90-day extension. So Trump gave them 90 days, despite the arrogant asshattery of Claudia Sheinbaum and her distasteful behavior towards the United States. Mexico got a 90-day extension. Now, who didn't get an extension? Oh, yes, South Africa. Of course, South Africa has nobody here, folks. No trade representative, no trade delegation, no ambassador, no special envoy, and they haven't for months. And then they lie about this. They lie to the people of South Africa, telling them they're negotiating. There's no negotiating going on. We've signed an agreement. You've signed no agreements. You just had a checklist of things that must be done before you can even make progress on trade. We've made an offer. Well, your offer is not being paid attention to because you have not listened to the offer the United States gave you. According to Corney Mulder from the Freedom Front Plus and other sources, the United States told South Africa that they had 4 conditions before we can even begin to improve the relationship between the U.S. and South Africa. And that's unrelated to the tariffs. That's related to the basic diplomatic relationship between these two countries. Disavow, kill the Boer, dismantle racist legislation, and a couple other conditions, none of which the South African government is even willing to consider doing. So the relationship is fractured, it's broken, and there's no one to negotiate tariffs down. Now what happens? Well, we've already seen the impact of this. Burma, which makes ammunition in South Africa up until March for their non-lethal weapons, no longer makes it in South Africa. They saw the tea leaves. They read them clearly. Months ago, after Trump was elected, they realized that he would follow through on his threat of tariffs. And so they decided to change their model, which had them making non-lethal firearms in America with only 32% U.S. content. But they changed their tune because Trump was coming in office. Now they produce over 92, 93% of their content here in America, including their ammunition at a plant in Indiana, which used to employ people in Pretoria. They're jobless now. They lost their jobs because Burma moved back over here. That was in March, long before any of this took place. Trump didn't even announce his tariffs until April. Burma was ahead of the game. Smart company, that is. Well, Since April, South Africa is suffering under a 10% tariff for all its goods and products. Now, it's not just a 10% tariff. In effect, it's at least 12.5% tariff because South Africa was getting duty-free access to our marketplace. That's gone. The African Growth Opportunity Act is gone, done and dusted. And we have South African politicians thinking South Africans are stupid. We have Parks Tau, we have Ronnie Lamola, we have Fikile Mbalula, Gwede Mantashe, and John Steenhuisen running around talking about AGOA, 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 AGOA. Well, AGOA is a gone. And it's been a gone. And I warned you people 18 months ago, but you don't listen. You don't listen or you don't care. 18 months ago, when Chris Coons introduced renewed legislation to bring back AGOA once more for another 5 years, I said it's unlikely to succeed. That was in a Democratic administration. When Trump came in, there's no way it's going to succeed. Nobody has any interest in giving African countries duty-free access so they can crap all over America. Countries that tell us after we spend billions of dollars defending them from terrorists that we need to get out. And that's our reward for taking care of them and protecting civilians' lives. And we give them duty-free access? No, that ends 30 September. AGOA is dead. Now, that doesn't mean it can't come back or be renamed or have another version or be AGOA 2. But this constant parade of idiots from politics in South Africa saying, well, AGOA is still possible. We can still make AGOA happen. We can still get something on the table. You can't. It's gone. And I've told you this all along. While they whistled past the cemetery, they've been telling you this garbage for months. And I told you it wasn't going to happen. It isn't going to happen. And now the reciprocal tariffs are here. So here's a little tidbit. Interestingly enough, we don't know really what the tariffs are going to be in South Africa. Will it be 30%? Will it be 40%? Will it be 50%? 50%? Well, folks, 30% because of the unfair trade practices of South Africa. Unfair trade practices? What do you mean, Chris? Well, what I mean, very simply, is that South Africa practices unfair trade against the United States. When they imposed 75% tariffs on our poultry products, we had no tariffs on their poultry, 75%. When they block our pork from being imported with artificial, bogus requirements, that's a barrier. When they set quotas for us shipping American manufactured cars to South Africa, that's a barrier. All of these things together play a role. As a consequence, Trump has put a 30% tariff on South Africa. But that's not the end of it, folks. After the BRICS summit, including the vocal and vociferous Cyril Ramaphosa acting like the big man on campus in Brazil because Putin and Xi weren't there. So I'm the big man now. Ramaphosa ran his mouth and stood Brazil. As a consequence, Trump, angry about BRICS, the fake alliance that doesn't exist, no treaty, no substance. Because of that, Trump said any country that supports BRICS policies will have an additional 10% tariff. Well, all things being equal, being a member of BRICS means you support BRICS policies. So that should mean a 40% tariff. But we can't stop there. Anyone doing business with Russia, because Russia's intransigence about ending the conflict in Ukraine, Trump has said they will also get an additional tariff. So I don't know what that is, but it could be as much as 50%. So for sure, it's 30%, and that takes effect today, but it won't be charged on goods for a week, according to Customs. Now, hopefully Customs has their act together and they don't come back next week and go, we need another week. We shall see. But the bottom line is this. Jobs have already been lost, and it's far more jobs than the central bankers claim. They say 100,000 jobs will be affected by this. That's utter nonsense. There's 141,000 jobs in the automotive sector alone directly tied to the exports of automobiles to America. It's devastating what's happened. A year ago in the quarter, 9,700 motor vehicles exported to the United States. This year in the same quarter, with a 25% global automobile tariff in place, South Africa's exports dropped from 9,700 to just 1,100. Yo. Now, those cars are made in South Africa. The harnesses are made in South Africa. The tires are made in South Africa. The parts are made in South Africa. Everything, for the most part, is made in South Africa, and it's assembled there. All of the knock-on from a car not being produced and sold will flow back to all the people who produce all the parts, transport everything around, and then all the ancillary businesses, the hotels, the restaurants, the stores, the Pep, Mr. Price, Markham's, you name it, Edgar's, all of those things, Sterkinacor, all the things people rely on. Rent that you pay, no money, no jobs, no hope, just despair. And why is this? Because South Africa's government is arrogant. Instead of being honest, they start attacking Trump, and then they lie about Trump, and then they play this silly little game talking about Elon Musk, who has nothing to do with any of this. And here we sit. This is a tragedy of epic proportions. It's an own goal. It was unnecessary, completely unnecessary. And South African politicians, instead of being honest, or even maybe a bit humble, gosh, forgive that, have lied and gaslit South Africans in the world. Well, they seem to think that the BRICS are coming to the rescue. There's money for them. Well, there isn't, and they're not. But here, I guess, is the bottom line with all this. It's clear that South Africa's politicians, whichever political party they're in, that are part of this government of national disunity, government of national comedy, don't care about South Africans. They don't care about South Africans. This is the most important trading relationship South Africa has with the United States. But China's bigger. Of course it's bigger. China buys tons of raw materials from South Africa, commodities whose prices fluctuate up and down in economic waves. The United States buys finished products. The entire beneficiation chain remains in South Africa. We hear Cyril Ramaphosa go to this liberation movement, the comical summit they just had, talking about how we need to produce in Africa, we need to produce our own steel, we need to produce our own products, we need to produce our own industrialization. Hey, genius, that's exactly what Americans buy from you. The things you're talking about doing. The Chinese don't buy that from you. That relationship is one-sided with a massive trade deficit for South Africa and hundreds of thousands of jobs already lost to the Chinese producing things that South Africans used to produce, like clothing, shoes, and industrial things. Those jobs are gone, and they're not coming back. You produced the things you want to produce. You're talking about building something and then sending it abroad, bringing all the value chain to South Africa. That happens with what America buys from South Africa, plus your high-value agricultural products in the off-season for us. Cyril, Parks, Ronnie, Paul, Fikele, you guys are clueless. And a lot of South Africans are going to suffer. Of course, you're going to blame it on Trump. You're going to blame it on racism. You're going to blame it on America's neo-colonialism. None of that's true. Incompetence, arrogance, and stupidity. That's the bottom line. And that all sits at Lutuli House and its partners in the government of national unity who go along with this. What say you, South Africa, Mzansi? U.S., what do you say? We have something in this. Amarula just went up by 30%. I'm not buying it anymore. Cheers.